Now that you have a basic idea of how the Classcraft account works, I want to show you how you're able to customize what is happening in your classroom. You want to make sure that Classcraft meets your needs and you want to allow it to fit right into what you're already doing. The goal of Classcraft is not to completely change your classroom management or to completely change how you're running your classroom. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the settings tab. And you'll see that in game settings, you have behaviors, powers, sentences, and random events. This is basically where we're going to hang out for this video. So behaviors is broken into positive behaviors, negative behaviors, and gold pieces or gold points. Just so you know, gold points are only available from the teacher in the paid version. So I'm going to leave that alone for right now. I assume that if you're looking at this tutorial, you're not totally ready to jump into a paid account. So let's start with the positive experience points. They give you several presets depending on what kind of classroom setup you're looking for, but I can always come through these and tweak them. There are a lot of different options and you're able to customize them for what you need. So for example, I always add one for when my groups are working together effectively. I really want to encourage that. So I want to reward them when they do it well. I also usually add one for helping a classmate. I want to encourage my students to ask each other questions and support each other so that they're more able to recognize each other's strengths. So I want to reward that. Again, you can add them in. You can use the pencil to edit one that's already there. So let's move on to health points. These are going to be what I want to call your big rocks. These should be very general so that you can just quickly and easily use them when you're in the middle of class. You can just say, okay, you should not have been arguing. You have disrupted the class. You're losing 10 points. You don't want to have to scramble to identify this one very specific instance and stop and figure out how many points that behavior was worth. You want 90 to 95% of your behaviors to just fall into these categories. For extreme and unusual circumstances, you can always do a custom one in class by, again, using that plus and minus button over here, okay? So for me, I want to add one about technology use. That's something that is very important in my class. We use a lot of our devices, so I might add in appropriate use of technology. Again, you can edit these using the pencil. You can add some in. You're able to adjust it to whatever you need. Think about as you weight these items. So inappropriate use of technology is a big deal to me. So I'm going to weight it more heavily than not having a pencil. Okay. So next we'll look at powers. As was mentioned earlier, there are 3 different types of characters. There are mages, there are healers, and there are warriors. Each have their different strengths and weaknesses. And as these characters get stronger, they can unlock new powers. I really recommend you look very closely at these because once you set them up, you want to honor them, right? You want to tweak them so that they set up your classroom in a way that you're okay with. If you're unfamiliar with video games or powers in any sense, I recommend that you use this View Resources tool to learn a little bit more in specific detail. So the 3 character types are balanced. The warriors are going to have a lot of health, but less action points. Healers tend to be more balanced, and mages have less health points, but many more action points. And when you print out your basic information for your students in the game rules, when you print that, it'll have those points laid out for you. So let's look at mages first. Action points are the cost of doing that action. So like mana transfer costs a whole lot. So players won't be able to do that as often, but it's a collaborative action and it impacts all of the team members. So you're going to want to especially pay attention to things like this. So like teleport lets the mage trade places with any other classmate. I'm okay with my students switching seats, but you may not be. You may want to revise this one by using the pencil edit button. Then with invisibility, the mage can leave the classroom for up to 2 minutes. So I leave that one. I tend to recommend that skill, especially to my students that are on behavior plans or have IEPs, so that they're looking to unlock that skill early on, because then they're able to self-regulate how often they're taking that cool down break. Now, of course, if it's an IEP related timeout, you can't penalize them for doing that. So we don't want to be breaking the IEP, but for students that are having issues regulating emotions, it is a useful tool. So when you're looking over here at cheat death, the cheat death tool is if your teammate is dying, they can re-roll the cursed die to change the punishment from the Book of Laments. I don't tend to rewrite this one, but a lot of people do. So like Time Warp says that the mage is going to gain an extra 8 minutes to beat an exam. I can't use that in my classroom because usually when a test is finishing, we have class change. I don't have 8 minutes to give the student. So I tend to edit that one and use it as extra time on an assignment so that my students are allowed to turn in an assignment 1 day late. That's totally up to you. So the warrior has different actions than the mage. When students first start looking at this, warriors tend to be one of the most popular character types, especially because they see that there are a lot of health points and students like that flexibility. Just make sure that you look over these carefully. Make sure that you're okay with students, for example, being able to eat in class. And think about, is that a treat that the students brought? Is it one that you're providing? I also don't tend to let the secret weapon be used the way it's suggested. I teach language arts, so many of our exams are geared on towards using the book or the passage. There isn't necessarily a great cheat sheet that I can give them, so I do usually rewrite that one. Healers are pretty straightforward. Again, make sure you're okay with things like students opening or closing your windows. I tend to rewrite these two to say about this one, about the exams to the quizzes or the test, so that that matches the language I use in my classroom. I do change favor of the gods because iPod tends to be a little bit more of a dated term. And I just say healers can listen to music during classwork. But again, all up to you. Remember, you want to make sure that these align to how your classroom is set up. All right, so sentences. Sentences are the consequences when a student falls in battle. You want to make sure you have this list ready to go before you start the game. I make mine a list of about 15 different items. Some of them are very serious, some of them are very silly. I found a really great thread in the Classcraft discussion boards that a lot of teachers were using to share some of their examples. But again, they should only be things that are going to fit in your classroom culture. The sentences list that was provided by these other teachers in the discussion boards, it's a wonderful list. I'm going to link it in the description below so that you have access to it. All right. So the random events list can be a lot of fun. You can choose whether you want to use it in your classroom or not. Under the class tools here on the left, there's the Wheel of Destiny and the Riders of Vey are both available in the free version of the game. So the Wheel of Destiny is just a random student or team picker, and the Riders of Vey is a random event selector. So in the settings, you can look at the whole list of all of the random events that have been set up. So I went through these pretty carefully before I started. Like, I liked courtly manners. Everyone must address each other as my lord and my lady. I think it's hilarious. My students, by the way, do not. But I don't like this one. The kitty master. Everyone must end their sentences with meow. I found that that got really annoying to me after the first 3 minutes. So I just took it off the list. I started the year with it on the list, and then I removed it when it reached a point that I was not willing to be okay with it anymore. So feel free to edit and change these to meet your needs.